Hi everyone, Matt Covey from Suburban Canine, and I'm here today to talk to you about Littermate Syndrome. Now, many people go to get a puppy and they get suckered in by those cute little eyes and end up getting 2 puppies or sometimes even 3. This might not sound like a problem and it could sound like a lot of fun, but it's actually a pretty big deal and can lead to huge issues down the road. Since you found this video, I'm assuming you've heard of Littermate Syndrome, or you know a little bit about it. Well, let's dive in and figure out, what causes it and then also how to address it. So, littermates spend, every living second together when they're young, right? During their first 8 weeks, they're eating together, sleeping together, playing together constantly. And this bond is really important at an early age. But it does get problematic as they get a little bit older. So, Littermate Syndrome arises when dogs bond to each other so tightly that they really don't develop the way they should, and it leads to socialization, fear, and aggression issues. So we see this all the time, and we often get called in once it's pretty severe. So what I want to talk about first today is how do we prevent this in the first place, and then we'll talk about how to fix it if it has arisen. Okay, easiest way to prevent this is pretty simple. Don't get littermates. Most breeders recommend not to get 2 puppies at once, and a lot of breeders won't even sell you 2, at the same time. It's also important to note that puppies don't have to be siblings for this to occur. If you get 2 young puppies at basically the same time, they can still develop Littermate Syndrome. So we recommend just don't get 2 puppies within 4 to 5 months of each other, and the odds of this go down to about 0. Now, if you're watching this video, my guess is you probably already have littermates, right? Don't worry, we see this issue all the time, and managing it is possible. It's just a lot of work, but there are concrete steps you can take to prevent issues from arising or fix them if they've already occurred. Okay, let's dive a little bit deeper into the potential issues that arise, and then we'll get into the actual fixes. So, it's worth mentioning that not all littermates are going to develop these issues. And if they do, the issues don't always arise right away. They might not happen until they're going through their adolescence period or until they're fully mature as they, hit 1 or 2 years old. So it's our recommendation, treat all littermates as if they're going to develop Littermate Syndrome, and then just be really happy and proud of yourself if no issues arise down the road. The most common issue we see with littermates is separation anxiety. As I mentioned before, the bond between the 2 littermates is just so strong, and it gets even stronger as time goes on. This can make separating them stressful, and it's often almost impossible until you've done some training. Over the years, I've had tons of clients who will crate their 2 littermates together so that they're more comfortable and and they're not nervous when they leave. And I understand that separating them can be hard at first and can be a little bit of a challenge. But if it's a challenge at a young age, think how hard it's going to be as they're 6 months or a year old and they've been together that whole time. The next major issue we see is socialization related, and it's socializing with other dogs and with humans. And this is caused by their bond is just too intense, and they rely on each other so much that they don't really make proper social connections sometimes because they're so bonded and focused on each other, which leads to big issues down the road. We often see that littermates will have an issue like just bonding with their owners. And what happens is they spend all their free time operating as kind of like a 2-dog pack, right? And the dog is usually focused on pleasing you as their owner, but with littermates, sometimes they're just focused on each other, and it can make just life with their owner just very frustrating and kind of discouraging when you don't have that bond you see with your other dogs. Littermates also have a much higher chance of fighting each other than what we see in the average multi-dog household. What can happen is one of the dogs becomes just very pushy, very dominant, very controlling, kind of a bully, while the other dog becomes very, very submissive and much too submissive. And in a pack of dogs, it's not a strange thing to have one dog who's a little more controlling and then also a more submissive dog, but littermates sometimes take this to an extreme. This doesn't happen with all littermates, just to be clear, but sometimes it does get to a point where it's a whole new thing. It's not just your typical Littermate Syndrome. We call it sibling rivalry syndrome. When that happens, we start to see a lot of fights, and these are very uncalled for, kind of unpredictable fights that are happening because of this unstable dynamic between the dogs. This is definitely a big issue. It is uncommon, but when it does come up, it's a pretty big deal and definitely takes a lot of work to fix. Okay, after all that doom and gloom, let's spend some time talking about how do we prevent it and then how do we fix it. Okay, If you already have littermates, we already said it's easy just to not get littermates, right? But if you have them and they're young, you might think logically, since you're training 2 dogs, all you have to do is, spend twice as much time training, but it's actually 3 times as much work. And the reason for that is we have to train each dog separately and then also together. So feeding, crating, socializing, playing, everything needs done with each dog separately and then with both dogs together. So now let's spend some time talking about actual tasks that you should be working on. So all of the exercises I'm going to discuss can be applied to puppies in order to prevent Littermate syndrome, but they can also be applied to older dogs to reduce or eliminate issues that you may be seeing. Okay, one of the first things you have to do is make sure the dogs are comfortable being apart from each other, being separated. They should be crated in different rooms, and I want you to understand that although this can be difficult, it's really, really important. If you start with this with young puppies, it's going to be much easier. You should also make sure each dog is okay when the other dog leaves the house. So for example, go on a long walk with one dog and leave the other one home and make sure that they don't show signs of stress. I would practice this. At first I would leave one dog home in the crate while you go for a walk, but eventually you want to work up to leaving the other dog free in the house. You leave with one dog while the other one stays in the house free, and you're looking to make sure they're not whining, panting, ripping up the house, of course, or showing signs of stress. Another good test of their ability to be separated is to start the walk together and then eventually part ways on the walk. This requires 2 handlers, of course, but we want to ensure the dogs can remain calm and they can be walking together and then go their separate ways and not be stressed that their buddy or sibling is leaving. So we just discussed how important it is to separate the dogs, but we haven't talked about what to do when they're separated. One of your most important tasks is to socialize each dog together and separately. And if you haven't watched our socialization video, I would suggest watching it after this one. But a quick framework for socializing is to make sure that you do 3 things. Socialize in different environments, socialize with different types of people, and socialize with different types of dogs. That's really it, and then you create your plan from there. Make a full socialization plan because you want to ensure that you're covering all your bases. So, an example, let's say you're planning on a socializing session at Home Depot. You should start with one dog at a time, or you could have 2 separate handlers, in different parts of the store with each dog. You could then end the session by bringing the 2 dogs together and then practice socializing together. So basically, everything you see in the socialization video, everything you hear in there, I want you to practice with one dog, then the other dog, and then both dogs together. You need to meet people, dogs, different sights, different sounds, different smells, strollers, bikes, scooters, trains, buses, everything you can think of. Okay, as you're practicing your socializing, keep in mind that each dog is probably going to behave quite differently. When Littermate syndrome starts to occur, you often see that there's a more kind of pushy, assertive, confident dog, and then you have a more submissive, nervous pup. And the differences between them usually become more pronounced through time because the submissive pup just relies on the more confident one, and so they get less confident as time goes on because they're always used to deferring to their buddy. So remember, the dogs are not the same. They're going to learn at different paces. They're going to respond differently to different situations. They're going to have different triggers that set them off. When both dogs are meeting someone new, together, they might be completely comfortable, outgoing, friendly, and everything's great. But then you might take one dog out to socialize by themselves and find out they're super submissive, they're nervous, and they're not very comfortable. And that's because they've probably relied on their sibling too much. And so it's important you address this quickly right now so they can be confident on their own, before it gets worse. Okay, another thing that you need to practice together and separately is obedience training. Practice training the dog in every environment you can think of, with the goal being that they act the same, whether you have one dog with you or 2. So often the confident pup will be more challenging when it comes to obedience. They might not like being told what to do. They might be, just more willing to challenge you and disobey you. So it's important to take time to, kind of train past this hurdle. The submissive pup could be a challenge too, because they might struggle with obedience when they're on their own because of a lack of confidence. They could be nervous to lay down in public or nervous to hold a sit stay because of everything that's happening around them. So take your time and keep practicing, and you really just want to see they act the same, whether they're together or separate. Okay, I know this is a lot of info, and I hope it's been helpful to you, but just to recap, littermates should be avoided, right? But if you still plan on getting littermates or you currently have littermates, there's hope. Don't worry, just work hard. The amount of work is going to be triple, but it's very, very doable. So you're going to spend a lot of time making sure the dogs are able to be separated without issues. You're going to create them in different rooms, all of that good stuff. You need to create a socialization plan, follow it with the dogs separate and together, and you're going to work on your obedience together and separately. If you follow the framework laid out in this video, the odds of your dogs developing Littermate syndrome are going to be much, much lower. If your dogs already have Littermate syndrome, hopefully you now have enough information to start creating a plan to remedy the issue. Tell us about your dogs. We'd love to hear about them. If you have 2 littermates that are great and have never had problems, please share that below. If you have 2 dogs you're having issues with, drop us a comment and we will reply as soon as we can and get you the help that you need. I hope this is helpful. Definitely subscribe now. We've got a lot more videos coming out and we would love to help you with your dog.